All right, welcome to the American Veteran Business Podcast, where we shine a spotlight on the remarkable journeys of veteran entrepreneurs who've taken the skills and discipline honed in the military and applied them to the business world. I'm your host, Dave Mastis, and tonight we're missing our co-host, James Beck from Lifebook Military, but he'll be back on the next one. Tonight we've got a great guest. His name is LaCourse, a Navy veteran out of California, and he owns Vet Wise Benefits, and he's helping veterans to be able to file their claims for veteran disability. So welcome to the show, Rod, and it's good to have you here. You're one of those guys that everybody needs. So one of the first questions that we usually ask is, where did you grow up at?
I was born in upstate New York, but I lived, my childhood was in Oklahoma, Enid, Oklahoma, where I played football and sports. And I went to college for about a year and a half, and then went in the Navy during the Vietnam era. That's when the Vietnam War was going on in the 60s, and served my time there. And I was in country a little bit, and then on ship sometimes too. And basically, I just did my 4-year hits. That's all I really did, and nothing to brag about. But I got the opportunity to get to serve, and I did okay, I think.
Well, first of all, I want to say, Rod, thank you for your military service because, what you did during the Vietnam War era, is the things that helped us to grow later on for those that were entering in military service, especially after 9/11. So you mentioned upstate New York. And what part of upstate New York were you from?
A town called Ticonderoga. My parents, their family lived in Canada, and they were miners up there. And then they moved to New York because the mining in Canada had kind of dried out. So they went down to upstate New York, and it's kind of close to Buffalo and all that area, and up in the mountains up in there. So they did some mining up through there, and then he went and my dad was an Air Force pilot during World War II, and so that's how we got started. And then he met my mother, and we moved to Oklahoma. That's about all I know from that, really. Yeah. I spent most of my life in Oklahoma.
So after your military service, then what did you do after you got out of the Navy?
Well, when I got out, I went into engineering. I was going to school for an engineering degree, and so I decided I better get into the engineering field, HVAC to be exact. And I was going to school and working full time, and it's just something that I really had a love for. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't finish my degree because what they were teaching me in school was outdated compared to what I was actually doing in real life. So I did that for, about 18 years or so. And then I got kind of bored with it because of the fact I never got to really see anything I designed. But I was designing air conditioning systems and ventilation systems for hospitals and high-rise buildings. So I went into construction management from there. And that's when I built hospitals. That was most of my career for that. That was large projects, around $800-900 million projects.
So are there any hospitals that you'd like to mention based on the hard work that you did?
Oh, I did, Glendale Adventist Hospital here, and Blodgett Memorial up in Washington, I believe it was. And high-rise buildings was Pennzoil Place, Twin Towers, they built there. Just a bunch of them. I mean, I've had, 30-some years of both engineering and construction. And during my construction, I also did design build. So it's just a ton of things. I mean, I've done food processing plants all the way through wafer producing facilities and stuff. So yeah, it's been an interesting career, that's for sure.
Definitely, without a doubt. I'm going to throw a quick curveball at you, though, and ask you, for somebody that's just getting out of the military, what sort of advice would you give them?
I think for me, it's just the important factor is to me is you want to consider a couple things. One, I'm a firm believer in owning a business. I mean, it's just, to me, that's the best way to go. it's probably one of the toughest things to do because you don't really know a lot about it. But I've learned over the years on how to be involved with business and stuff like that. But if you're not really thinking about business, and I would definitely consider education to find out what your interest level are. I mean, a lot of guys that I know got out, went into police and sheriff type duties, and they loved it. I just happened to like drawing and just for some reason loved engineering. I'm a textbook fanatic, to be honest with you. It's what I like to read. I'm kind of boring when it comes to that, but I definitely believe in finding something that you like. But going to school to me gives you the opportunity to explore. You want to explore those horizons. Give yourself a couple of years to really kind of test it out and just understand that personally, I believe you can make a career out of anything. You just have to apply yourself. Your positive thinking, get around positive thinking people in the field that you're interested in, get some mentorship. I've always told education is free, so you might as well give it out. You're not going to lose it. You can't take it from you. So that's kind of my advice. But yeah, definitely get out. But before you get out of the service, I would definitely, when you're processing, make sure, I think they're doing it now, but make sure that if you got injured or are having some potential difficulties with your health, go ahead and see the VA doctors and get yourself some diagnosis for it and some treatments for it, because that's the key to the claims process. The VA understands that our military make a lot of sacrifices and a lot of things are unknown that can happen to your body afterwards. You just don't know. But the only way to really get the benefit or to qualify for the benefit is to definitely have what I call evidence, medical evidence. So you need to see somebody, whether it's a private doctor or the VA, to have them diagnosis and get a diagnosis from it. It'll make things so much easier and go so much smoother for you. That's kind of what I know.
So you've now worked several careers, and you're now working with Vet Wise Benefits to help veterans file their disability claims. And tell us how you got into it.
Well, like I said, I was helping my son do it. I never did file for a long, long time. I'm filing now, but prior to that, the old school is suck it up type thing. But he was telling me about, he filed and he just knew a lot of vets that were suffering. And I said, okay, so that's when I joined some military groups on Facebook, and I would listen to their posts, read their posts, and I found out that the majority of the problem is that one was a time element. It just took them an awful long time to get it. Disappointments when they didn't qualify, and they didn't understand why it was so difficult to do it. So I got to helping him, and then I got to realizing that this is a pretty good process that we've got going on. Makes things a lot simpler. I mean, can't guarantee I can't guarantee an increase. That's because the VA is the one that has to do the final decision, and I can't guarantee they'll do that. I can tell you that the package that they get from us is detailed, and it meets the requirements that the VA requires. That's one of the things I like about it. We give them, detailed, tailored DBQs for them to fill out and answer, and we get the records put together. So I think that we've eliminated all the confusion. And I think that's kind of why I got involved. And I started realizing, we need help out there. And this is just the easiest way to do it. I'm getting ready to run a campaign here on TV and some banner ads. So I'm looking forward to getting Southern California and a few other states. We work in any state in the United States.
I'll tell you that I have run into a lot of veterans, and I'll ask them, did you ever file your disability claim? And you'd be surprised at how many people have not filed their disability claims that they so richly deserve. There's a lot of veteran organizations that are out there, veteran service officers, VSOs. They're helping veterans as well, but I find that they're overwhelmed. And they're so overwhelmed, especially that they need guys like you to be able to help other veterans file their claims and get the benefits that they need.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I found out. And there's no discredit to the VSOs. I mean, they've been through the VA training and stuff. It's just that everybody's overwhelmed, and a lot of them also have a full-time job.
Yeah,
So, this is my business. This is what I do full time. So I'm in control of how many and whatever I need to do to help these guys. And like I said, you know, our process takes about a year or less to get through before you get some kind of a decision.
that's good. We have a lot of guys who are struggling to even maintain jobs, and especially just because of the disabilities that they have. After serving at war, especially, it can definitely, make things difficult for some people. Having that compensation for the things they've occurred while in service is just extremely crucial. And being that we just finished up 20 years of war in Iraq and Afghanistan, there's a lot of people out there that need that help. So, how long have you been doing this?
Well, I've actually been involved for about a year and a half, but I've had my business for about a year.
Yeah,
I'm fairly new at me being on my own, technically, but I worked for about a half a year off and on with my son.
that's awesome. How long has your son been doing this for?
I think it's his fifth year this year, maybe his fifth year.
What do you think the biggest thing is that's holding people back from filing and getting their benefits?
Um, well, I think the not filing part, a lot of people are kind of, they've been drilled in the military to just suck it up, you know, toughen it out type thing. And I think that the VA has realized that over the years that there's just some unknowns that come about from their service and things that you're doing, and carrying a lot of weight or hiking a lot or whatever. And I think that's part of the reasons why they didn't file. I think the other part of the thing that's going on right now is it's a very confusing, complicated system, and it's frustrating. And if you don't answer the questions properly or get the right questionnaires for the disability, then your tendencies go down for success. That to me is the most important part. That's why I like the system we use. Ours are tailor-made DBQs. They're specific for the disability that they're claiming, and we can determine right up front. Okay, looks like you qualify. Okay, we ask them a bunch of questions. We know range of motion and all this. So I think that this is the best system that I've seen so far. And like I said, time element. Like I said, I helped out a gentleman just last month that took him 8 years just to get to 50%. Yeah, he qualified 100% in less than a year.
Yeah, that's crazy. I think one of the things that really annoys me is how they judge the hearing claims that are out there. As a young private, especially in the military, as we did live fire exercises that were out there, and this is back in the 90s, we were told, take out your earplugs because you can't hear me, prior to the live fire starting, and they couldn't, help to maneuver you where they wanted to maneuver you. So my ears after those live fire exercises were just ringing like crazy, and they'd ring for like 3 days straight. So, now of course I've got, tinnitus, and the annoyance of that is extremely aggravating.
Absolutely. There are a few disabilities. I mean, I have access to the VA files, and we don't cover all the disabilities that they do, but we have quite a few. I mean, I can guarantee you that we have the majority of the major ones that need to be looked into. But yeah, that's the one thing. And I always like to tell my vets, the thing is, it's not that you've earned this. It's the thing is I look at it like this. The VA says, okay, we realize that things happen. For example, your hearing. And we also realize that now, through all the evidence, that things get worse as we get older. And we understand that. So they're offering compensation for that because of those issues if you qualify. And that's really that's the way I look at it. And that's the way I think it works. And I think that's what's going on with it. Now, obviously, there's been a few reviewers that are not quite so agreeable to work with, but I find that we provide private medical doctors to do the review of the DBQs, and then then the vet submits that evidence to them, and they are required, or they do accept private doctor exams. It's not that you have to go to a CNP necessarily. So I think that makes it a little bit easier on the vet, because some of the attitudes are is they don't think the doctors care or really want to listen or really want to ask the question. And again, I don't know if it's just because they're overloaded. And again, I'm not going to say bad things about the VA. I just know it's complicated. It's probably just as complicated for them when they're seeing the veterans and stuff. So it's a huge thing. I know that. I've learned that so far within this year. There's just a lot of things that has to be done. So I think that this is the thing for the vet to understand, that patience is hard, but you also got to understand that things happen when you're in the service, and don't be ashamed or afraid to apply for those benefits that are there if you qualify. That's the way I look at it.
Absolutely. In a way, we join our military to serve our nation, and our nation looks at us and puts us in the places that they need us the most. And a lot of times the military is going to do what they have to do in order to protect our country and serve our best interests. And so they're going to put you in places and in a way use you like a hammer would. So they're going to use you to hammer our blah, blah, blah. And so our military is going to place you in positions that they're going to need you, much like a hammer. Sometimes you'll use a hammer the right way, and sometimes you'll use the hammer in a way that you need to, because you need to get the job done. And that job may inevitably lead to damage that occurs to you and your body and your mind. So you should be compensated for that. And that's exactly what I believe they're doing, is compensating people for, using you in the means that they needed to serve our country.
Well, when you're young, you can say that because you're not hurting near as bad. When you get a little older, I've learned, yeah, it gets harder. It gets a lot harder. So yeah, if you qualify, you definitely, and the VA's offering it. I mean, it's not like, they're not in agreement with what's going on. So take advantage of what they're telling you, and get that compensation where you qualify. That's the way I look at it.
I completely agree. So if people want to find you, Rod, online, how do they find you?
They can just go to my website, which is vetwisebenefits.com, and that'll take you right into my site. And then if they want to do it for a free evaluation, it'll take you right to the contacts, and they can contact me, or they can call me at 626-252-7760, and I'd be happy to take a phone call and see if I can help them out. Some vets I can't, because there's things, but we can do new claims. If they've never filed, we can do that. We have criteria, and I'll find out whether, they can get that criteria. That's why I always say, if you're in pain, go see a doctor, because that's what you need to do anyway. Don't suffer personally. Just go see the doctor, and that'll give you a diagnosis, and those are the two main ways that you can get a hold of me. And like I said, I will be running an advertisement in Southern California, in Riverside and Orange County, I believe, here before the end of the month. So they'll probably be seeing my ads out there, but that's one way to do it. Right now, we get our business word of mouth. I don't do much advertising.
Yeah.
I have access to about 120 different people that do the very same thing I do, the very same program. So if the advertisements that I'm getting are going to get, are just more than I can handle, I'm more than happy to share it with all these other business owners, because these are all business owners. Not all of them are veterans, but a majority of them are.
All right. That's great work. Is there anything you would like to share with us before we wrap this up?
Well, I think about the only thing that I really like to tell people is, and I think it's good for personality too, you know, be positive. You can tell behind me, I've got a lot of books I read. I believe in positive reinforcement. If you're going to do business, understand that there's ups and downs. There's even a good book that says Ups and Downs of Entrepreneurship, because you're going to have to learn how to do it. Failures are not bad things, they're good things to learn from. And other than that, this what we do right now, I think for our veterans, don't feel like you're being judged, because there's no judgment here at all. This is just merely, if you qualify, we want to get you the benefit. And I think the VA is the same way. They're not judging you, that you're soft or you become weak or anything like that. This is just things that have happened to you during military service and as you're getting older. So other than that, that's really kind of about it. Just don't be afraid to ask for help.
You'll be featured on AmericanVeteranBusiness.com with this podcast, as well as you'll get a featured listing. So, I just want to say thank you very much for coming on the show today. It's been very enlightening to learn that you're out there doing this as a Navy veteran and helping our veterans to overcome the processes of filing their disability claims.
Well, I appreciate you having me on. This is good for my business too, and I hope it will help a whole lot of veterans in the upcoming months.
The great thing about your story is that it shows how you could transition from military service into the civilian world and do great things, such as building and designing buildings like hospitals that everybody needs. And then you can move on to serving veterans as you're serving now, helping them get their veteran benefits. So thank you very much for coming on the show, and we greatly appreciate it. This is Dave from AmericanVeteranBusiness.com. I want to thank you for joining us today. If you could do us a huge favor and click on like, subscribe, share us, and write a comment. That helps us out to make sure that more people see this. We greatly appreciate it. We'll see you soon.